As many of you guys already know, I am very open about my religion of Judaism. As a kid, I didn't really know any different, but as I traveled and gained perspective of the world, I realized how lucky it is to be part of a community that represents just 0.2% of the world's population. As a Jewish traveler, I am fascinated by how my religion is practiced all around the world, and it kind of became my mission to connect with Jews in faraway places. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you 3 of my favorite Jewish stories, and we begin in Ethiopia.
Okay, my name is Asmaro. I live in Ethiopia, Gondar. I wanted to go to Israel.
Shalom! How are you?
Here before inside Torah.
It's crazy to think that I'm in a Jewish cemetery in Ethiopia. Never thought I would be here. Hello and welcome to Gondar, Ethiopia. Today is a very special story that I've been wanting to tell you for years. I've always known that Ethiopia had a lot of Jews. That's why when I went to Israel 3 times, I saw a lot of black Jews who are almost exclusively from Ethiopian heritage. There's about 130,000 of them in total, to be exact. In Ethiopia, I had thought that all the Jews had migrated to Israel, but then I found out that that's not exactly the case here in Gondar, a city in the northwestern region of the country. Shalom. Today, around 4,000 of them remain, who are known as Beta Israel in the world of Judaism. I woke up early this morning to take an adventure into a Jewish village, and I'm blown away by what I saw.
Shalom, Shana Tova, Mashlimcha, Atayuda.
This is Falashia village, a place in the Siamen Mountains where a few hundred Jews used to live for generations until they mostly left for Israel in the 1980s and 90s. Nowadays, it's still remarkably preserved as a Jewish town, despite there being no more Jews left today. So these little girls now want to show me more of the village, so they're taking me around.
Here inside.
Okay.
Village.
You're 12? How old are you?
11.
11.
I'm grade 5 student. I want to be doctor. Help like patients. I want children doctor. Going in the Falasha village is 1942.
It's like an actual village in here. We're walking to these little houses.
Have there. You look here before Jews live here. Now left it in Israel 1942. Years ago.
I felt like I got a complete Jewish history lesson from this 11-year-old girl, and it was unexpectedly amazing. They speak more Hebrew than me, I'm guilty to admit it.
Here have like before come here. Here making like to make here. Jewish making like this one. Star David.
And what is this one?
This one lunch box like for bread.
Injera?
Yeah, injera for bread, and this one cooking. Here before inside Torah.
This is a synagogue.
Yeah, it's synagogue, but before here putting Torah.
This is the little thing that they used to hold and read the Torah. I'm now buying something from their shop because they're so sweet and so helpful. These people are really nice.
Here, Solomon and Saba, yeah, Lion of Judah. And this one Moses with Ark Covenant, and here Star of David, Magan David. This one crash, and here have waters. This one synagogue, like to this one.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you can get it. Clay and stone mix, mix like water.
How much for this one?
200.
Now I'm heading to the Jewish cemetery, which I'm surprised that they even have one here, but just keeps getting better and better. We're now in the Jewish cemetery here, and it's actually really, really special. We have all the Jewish guys. Yeah, in Hebrew and in Amharic and in English they have the writing on the stones.
Yeah, his name is boy, and his name is Yosef. He died in 1932.
1932. How many people are buried here?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah, but many.
It's crazy to think that I'm in a Jewish cemetery in Ethiopia. Never thought I would be here. The Jews of Beta Israel appear to have been isolated from mainstream Jewish communities for at least a millennium, and they have suffered religious persecution where many of them were forced to convert to Christianity or Islam. There's a beautiful synagogue here, which I knocked on the door and walked in this morning, and I was blown away by what I saw. Hundreds and hundreds of people around, almost like a Jewish campground, learning Hebrew, studying Torah, and connecting with the religion. Right now I'm in the synagogue and it's wild. I'm just surrounded by Ethiopian Jews. It's so cool. Hello.
Where are you from?
I'm from US, but I'm Jewish.
Jewish?
Yeah, man, Jewish. It was almost like I discovered this hidden world of Judaism that nobody knows about from the outside world. It was hard to believe my eyes what I was seeing. Growing up going to Hebrew school in Arizona was the same environment that I'm seeing here in Ethiopia. Nice to meet you. Shalom. What's your name?
Simacho.
Shalom. How are you doing tefillin? So I'm in one of like the study rooms where they have like Torah stuff and stuff written all over the walls. Pretty fascinating, honestly, to see this Jewish culture here in Ethiopia. I just want to know, what does it mean to you to be Jewish?
You
You know, Jews and Israel is very different, okay? Yeah,
Do you want to go to Israel someday?
yes. Those are,
He wants to go to Israel?
yes.
You keep kosher and Shabbat every week. Okay, awesome. Everybody can speak Hebrew. All the people. Directly outside the synagogue is a Jewish neighborhood where you can see kids playing in the streets wearing their yarmulkes, and there's even a Jewish circus down the street. It's prayer time at the temple here. It's so fascinating to see this. I love it. There was some serious connection that I was feeling in this room, but sadly, the Ethiopian Jews who remain in the country are separated and isolated from the Jews in Israel and around the world. The Israeli government does not give them equal recognition nor rights, making it very difficult for them to migrate to Israel, and the sadder part is that almost all of them have multiple family members over there who they will never have the chance to meet. Most people have family in Israel?
Yes.
Do you have family in Israel?
Yeah.
Do you want to make Aliyah?
Sure. We not just me, not only me. All of us.
It's been a very special experience to see the Judaism here in northwestern Ethiopia. It's something that I never expected. The traditions are still being carried out even if most of the Jews have left. It's still really cool to see and experience. I've been having a great guide. Yeah, these kids been showing me around. And yeah, it's just an experience I'll never forget. Toda rabba. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Yes, you too. Bye-bye. The next Jewish story will take you to Kabul, Afghanistan, where I met the last remaining Jew in the country. Out of all the videos I've made in my entire life, I am most proud of this one because of how difficult it was to find him and track him down, and I love the story, so here it is. This is Zablon Simentov.
I am only one Jewish Afghanistan, Kabul. Very good.
Very good. Before 1945, Afghanistan had thousands of Jews, mostly living in the western city of Herat. But they all left for Israel, Europe, and the US because of war, except for Zablon, who still remains. Yes, this man is the last Afghan Jew living in Afghanistan, a country of 36 million people. Just wait until you hear the rest of his story. As a Jew myself, I am proud of my religion. It's something that always stays with me when I travel, and even though I'm not religious, I like to connect with Jewish communities around the world. So yesterday, when I found out about Zablon, I booked a last-minute flight to Kabul, and the search was on to find him. After asking around a few times, this is it?
You say it's upstairs.
Oh, alright, I guess we found it. Sure enough, I tracked him down on the 3rd floor of this old apartment complex. Salam alaikum. How are you?
One thing, come in. You from?
I'm from the US.
Libya.
US, but I'm Jewish.
You Jewish?
Yes. Nice to meet you.
یا ماشی و کلوش مارس بخور سوام و خلیم یا ماشی ملاتوش آسا و شون یا ماشی میکم ملاتوش آسا.
So how do you practice your Judaism as the only Jew in Afghanistan?
آن تنهایی اون کالاندر بچه که باید میکاره که صاف اسرائیل جنگلی کالاندر.
He says, I have a Jewish calendar. My cousin brought this from Israel, and I have a lot of other books. I do take care of the days and everything and the timings, and I do the right prayer all the time just from this calendar.
Born in 1959, Zablon and his family come from Herat. He was a successful businessman for decades, making a fortune trading carpets, and traveled all over the world for business.
Israel, America, Washington, France, England, Moscow, and no problem.
He came back to Kabul in the early 90s and woke up one morning to realize that all his carpets were robbed at customs by the Mujahideen when they overthrew the government.
Everybody took it and escaped, and like it was robbed and stolen and theft.
Soon after, the Taliban took control of Kabul and they threw Zablon into jail, beating him up and destroying most of his possessions, including his beloved Torah.
Taliban.
They broke it.
Manura.
Really? When?
Manura, yes.
The Taliban destroyed all of this stuff?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's horrible. They tried to force him to convert to Islam, but he wouldn't give in.
No, it says, you know, in general, it says the Taliban was creating a problem for Jews. They just wanted their Islam and they didn't even want Shias. And he's asking me that you don't know this and you ask me.
Does the Taliban know about him being here now?
Yes, they know.
Is he scared?
He says, I'm not afraid. For months I was in their prison and he says, I don't care.
So within a few years, he went from a rich businessman to being broke and under control of the Taliban. Meanwhile, his wife and 2 daughters left for Israel. Zablon was eventually freed, and he has made his home here in Kabul to be the sole caretaker of this synagogue. Okay, so we're now entering the synagogue. Oh, it's amazing. It's the only synagogue in Afghanistan. Wow. The Jewish start. And it's super cool. Like, one of the most special experiences I've ever had on all my travels is right now. Miraculously, he has kept Orthodox, studying Torah, practicing Shabbat, and keeping kosher.
In 1992, I went to Tashkent on Uzbekistan and I learned how to do the slaughtering stuff. And he says, I never buy food from here, from the bazaar.
When I asked him if he wants to move to Israel, he said, why? This is my country and I am not going to leave. What an experience it's been to connect with Zablon and hear his stories. His courage, his persistence, and his passion is exceptional. There's a special bond that was shared between us, and it's something that I'll remember forever. Thank you, sir. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Laila Tov. Ken, Laila Tov. Wow, that was an insane experience. Meeting that guy and talking about Judaism in Afghanistan, of all places. Good night, guys. For my next Jewish story, we head over to the Philippines, where I'm gonna tell you about the one and only Filipino Jewish rock star. This is Mike.
And I am one of the only Filipino Jew here in the Philippines that is existing here in Makati.
How many Filipino Jews are there?
Right here, right now in the synagogue, we are only about 3 or 4.
So Philippines has 100 million people and there's 3 or 4.
Yeah, out of 3. There's only 3 or 4.
Born in 1946, Mike Hanapol spent his early days in the beautiful island of Leyte in the central part of the Philippines. He was born Catholic, like 90% of Filipinos, or at least that's what he thought he was until he found out the real story in the 70s when his dad took a trip to the US.
My father was born in the Philippines, but his father was born Jew because Hanapol is a Russian Jew name. He came from New York as a soldier during the time of Quezon, President Quezon. And he came to Leyte. He married to my great-grandmother, and then my father was born.
His father traveled to America and met the Hanapol family in New York, who immigrated to the US from Kiev after the persecution of the Jews in 1920.
Then that's the start of my awareness when my father came back. Hey boys, we are a Jew. We are Jew. Our name is Jew.
Meanwhile, Mike was mastering his skills as a rock star in the Philippines, and combined with his interest in Judaism, he decided to migrate to the land of opportunities in the 1980s, the United States of America.
I worked in a gasoline station. I worked in a restaurant.
He worked various jobs as a driver, tried to make it as a rock star, but most of all, he read books about Judaism and studied the religion to its core.
So when I came to States 1982, then I started searching. Went to Judaica, went to synagogue, went to shul, have some Jewish friend and everything, and learned everything about being Jew. I stayed in New York, Miami, off and on 15 years.
Did you go to Israel?
Israel, yes. When I was in the States, I would go to Israel, from state to Israel, state to Israel. I would stay there for a year, sometimes 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, depends on...
You gotta have the shekels.
Shekel and everything.
While in Jerusalem, he learned Hebrew and studied to become a rabbi for several years.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher yatareh et ha'adam bekokmo ubarabo nekabim kalulim kalulim. Baruch atah Adonai roki kal basar mipali lasot.
He continued his studies in Canada after being formally converted to the Chabad movement of Judaism in Toronto. He was teaching you?
Yeah,
This rabbi?
of course.
In the 90s, he decided to move back to his beloved country, but this time with a rabbinical beard, a yarmulke, and Star of David treasures.
Being Jewish was my spiritual DNA.
He focused on his rock music, which he had several hit songs around the Philippines, making it to the level of a celebrity. But religion always came first, and he declined any shows on Friday night for Shabbat. Is it hard to practice Judaism in the Philippines?
So the way I do it, if I happen to be in a place where there are a lot of pork,
Cebu.
so what I tell them, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed by my doctor.
While in the Philippines, Mike Hanapol has been teaching Judaism to Filipinos who are seeking a new spiritual way of life.
Filipino culture needs to be understood also, need to be studied and learned before you can even teach them Judaism, because it's a culture to another culture.
To this day, Mr. Hanapol remains Orthodox, keeping Shabbat and eating kosher. So before I came to the Philippines, I always thought that I was the only Jewish person here, but now I know that there's at least one more.
Toda raba, bevakasha.
Toda rabah. Perfect. Alright guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you for watching about my 3 favorite Jewish stories around the world. I plan to keep on connecting with my religion because I find it very interesting, not only from a religious standpoint, but more from a cultural standpoint. And I think I'm in a really cool position to find these stories and tell them to you. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed. Please comment below your thoughts. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you guys later. I'm Drew Binsky, and if you like my travel videos, please click subscribe and join me as I plan to visit every country in the world.